statutory purpose is to improve public health, safety, convenience, and welfare of the citizens, and to plan for the future development of the community. In serving this statutory purpose, the Commission invites comments at the public hearing of its interested citizens of matters before it and welcomes your presence. Madam Chairwoman, I move that we adopt the agenda before us.
Do you have a second? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on, I would like to ask Commissioner Williams if he would lead us in the invocation.
We ask right now, Creator, that you will lead and guide us with wisdom as we attend to these affairs and serving our great community here in Newport. We ask for your overarching guidance, and we thank you for this opportunity to serve our citizens well. And we do so, may give glory and honor to all involved. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Now, would you lead us in the correct pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Okay, thank you very much. And now we are going to move right into our public hearing matters. And I will go ahead and open up our public hearing. And we have a conditional use permit that is going to be presented by Saul Gleiser. This is conditional use permit 2023-0002. Welcome, Saul.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So we have application CU 2023-0002. Stephanie Inc. is the owner. WMK LLC Mobility Works is the applicant. They are requesting a conditional use permit to allow for the operation of an automobile sales and new car dealership and automobile leasing service for wheelchair accessible vehicles. The property is located at 6099 Jefferson Avenue, and it contains 0.46 acres. North of the property are retail shops on property zone C1 Retail Commercial. East, we have restaurants and the plaza at New Market Shopping Center on property zone C1 Retail Commercial. Then south, we have the ABC Auto Repair on property zone C1 Retail Commercial. And lastly, to the west, we have the Walmart Superstore and vacant lots on properties zone C1 Retail Commercial. The One City, One Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan Land Use Map identifies regional commercial uses for this parcel. The dealership and leasing service is compatible with this designation. The property has been zoned C1 Retail Commercial since the citywide comprehensive rezoning became effective on August 1st of 1997. The site regulations require that a landscape strip be located along all street frontages. A 15-foot landscape strip is required along Jefferson Avenue. The conceptual landscape plan identifies an existing 25-foot green area that is going to be landscaped to meet the landscape strip requirements. The site regulations require that display area for a car dealership be designed to parking lot standards with individual spaces and landscaped end islands. Although the applicant is not proposing to make changes to the existing parking area, trees could be added at the end of most parking islands All spaces will be sized to be van accessible. The zoning ordinance requires a minimum of one space per 300 square feet of floor area, which would require 13 spaces for the 3,800 square foot building. The site plan proposes 22 spaces. City departments had no objections to this request. The applicant proposes to operate a new showroom for Mobility Works, a business that leases and sells wheelchair-accessible vehicles from an existing commercial building. Minimal changes are proposed to the building and site. The front facade will remain as is, but landscaping will be installed along the property's Jefferson Avenue frontage and along the northern property line. The parking lot will be restriped to provide 22 van-accessible spaces, and a new service access will be created at the rear of the building, allowing vehicles to enter the work area to be retrofitted for accessibility. There is an existing 18-foot tall sign that will be removed and will be replaced with a new 8-foot tall monument-style sign. Although by definition, the proposed use is a new car dealership and leasing service, as proposed and conditioned, the use will be limited to the sales and leasing of new wheelchair-accessible vehicles. The proposed operation provides a unique service that will be strategically located to serve a population that has limited options in the region. In conclusion, the size and unique nature of this automobile sales and leasing operation makes it well-suited for the existing building. The addition of landscaping will improve the appearance of the site, and the use is consistent with the recommendations of the One City, One Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan land use map. The proposed use will provide a specialized regional service that does not exist in the city currently. Hence, it is recommended that City Planning Commission recommends approval of conditional use permit CU 2023-0002 to allow for the operation of an automobile sales/new car dealership and automobile leasing service for wheelchair accessible vehicles at 6099 Jefferson Avenue with 18 conditions that include sales and leasing of automobiles at this location shall be limited to wheelchair accessible vehicles. The applicant shall provide plans in general conformance with the plans entitled Mobility Works Newport News Floor Plan. A landscape plan which is in conformance with the requirements of the zoning ordinance, site regulations, and this permit shall be submitted to and approved by the Director of Planning. One freestanding sign shall be permitted on the property. The existing sign shall be removed and replaced with a new monument-style sign no taller than 8 feet. All other conditions for car dealerships also apply. All 18 conditions are detailed in the staff report and will be part of the ordinance approved by council. Are there any questions?
Yes, Commissioner
Just
Williams.
again, just a quick point of clarification. So in agreeing to this, this site can only be used for this particular type of service? Or, like you said in the analysis, somebody abandons it, and someone else come in and start a different type of dealership?
It will be, by the conditions, it can only be used by a dealership that will sell new wheelchair accessible vehicles.
Unless they come back here to get it
Yeah.
changed
Yes.
again? Okay, just for clarification.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
And
Mr. Taylor.
it may be to the applicant, but do you have an idea how many vehicles are going to be on premises on the site? How they're planning? Because I see from this, there's going to be a couple in the showroom, but then we got this parking space requirement. But then I was wondering, and, they usually got some on the lot, but are they planning on having them on the lot, or are they going to just have the ones inside the
Well,
showroom?
the conditions are to have no more than 10 new vehicles for sale.
On the site at one time? That includes the ones inside?
So there's two.
Does that include the one inside the building?
Inside the building, there
one.
is room for one.
I saw one, right. Okay, so the other one's gonna be, I was just, with the parking space requirement and the number of vehicles, that's gonna reduce, so I just wondering.
Yeah, so
I have a question. What goes on in the shop area?
the shop area is where they work on the vehicles to make them wheelchair accessible.
We're gonna be retrofitting.
So they're
So
going to be.
it's retrofitting the vehicles that they get.
They're gonna take a regular van, I think.
So it's not fixing cars.
No, no, absolutely not. It's not a repair shop.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, thank you, Saul. I do have a card from Lisa Murphy. Ms. Murphy, would you please come forward and state your name and address?
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, my name is Lisa Murphy. I'm a zoning attorney with an office at 440 Monticello Ave, Suite 2200 in the city of Norfolk. I'm here today on behalf of WMK LLC, which trades as Mobility Works. And as Saul mentioned, we are applying for a conditional use permit for automobile sales, new car dealership, and automobile leasing in order to sell and service wheelchair accessible vehicles as well as mobility scooters at 6099 Jefferson Avenue. Just to, I guess, provide you a little bit of background, I know Saul did an excellent job, but Mobility Works' mission is to provide wheelchair users with mobility, independence, and the freedom they deserve. Their goal is to provide consumers with more options to find the right van for sale or rent in a city close to their home or travel destination. I don't know if you saw, but in the staff report, it indicates that this would be only the fourth Mobility Works in the whole Commonwealth of Virginia. Right now, the closest destination is in Norfolk. Mobility Works operates a total of 90 showrooms throughout the United States, and again, they're primarily engaged in new wheelchair accessible van and vehicle sales, and they sell mobility scooters as well. They also do convert vans and vehicles, so they're become wheelchair accessible, and they sell used and converted wheelchair accessible vans and vehicles as well. Mobility Works also sells a wide variety of home and vehicle accessibility equipment, including wheelchair lifts, scooter lifts, hand controls. So you can not only buy a vehicle or lease a vehicle there, but you can also obtain the equipment to either retrofit your home or to retrofit your vehicle. The facility mentioned would be brand new to the city, new to this side of the water. It will operate between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday, and that would be by appointment only. Typically, what they expect is 4 to 5 customers a day looking for vehicles, and 4 to 5 customers a day coming in to have their vehicle serviced or retrofitted. They will have a customer lounge, offices, and a display area for a vehicle inside and then outside. The parking lot itself, when they restripe it for just the 22 spaces, there are approximately 13 spaces that are required based on the size of the facility. So then the other spaces would be available for the showcasing of the vehicles themselves. There would be no vehicle parking on the grassy strips or anywhere other than the parking spaces. The customers seeking to have their wheelchair accessible vehicles serviced and those seeking to have their vehicles converted would come around to the rear and enter through the rear of the building, which is going to be retrofitted so that vehicles can pull into the rear. They'll enter the shop area. All work, all maintenance will be done in there. One thing to point out, the services provided will include basic light vehicle repair and maintenance services, but they are focused predominantly on wheelchair conversion, maintenance, and repair. So it is very specialized. You know, when we started talking to staff about this late fall, end of last year, this was really a unique type of a use. And so one of the things we agreed to, and it's in the conditions, is that this is for this particular type of vehicle, the wheelchair accessible vehicle, and so that condition really is focused on this user. If somebody else wanted to come in, they'd have to modify the conditions or, you know, be able to provide a service that fit within the existing zoning designation for the property. So we're fine with that. The property owner is fine with that. As the staff report indicates, the size and the unique nature of this particular operation really makes this property well-suited. The property itself has been vacant since December of 2020, so as you can imagine, the property owner is very anxious to get in a tenant, and this really is ideal. When they started the process in October, they submitted plans for a building permit. They didn't realize that because of the vehicle sales component, they needed a conditional use permit. And so that kicked it through to this part of the process. So we have been working on this for several months, and I appreciate all of staff's work on this. This really is going to provide a specialized regional service that doesn't exist in the city and frankly doesn't exist on this side of the water. So they're happy to become a part of the community, and they really feel there is a need to serve the disabled community from this particular location. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have.
Yes, Katie.
Just to reiterate, you said there would be no vehicle parking on the grass, so no showing of a car up front, showing of a van up front on the, Jefferson side on the grass, like.
The condition is that it has to be in a parking space,
Okay.
right? So they can't park it on the grass
Yeah,
like
just show
some,
them, yeah.
right. It has to be in a parking space, it has to be
Okay.
Wheelchair accessible.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. Yes, Lon, Commissioner Williams.
Just, now that you mention it, you talk about the scooters. The scooters aren't included as part of the vehicle count, correct?
Because those, I don't think, are considered vehicles. Those would be more of a retail sales use, which is what they thought this was when they started the process back in the fall.
Okay, I just, another clarification.
And that goes, as far as no parking on the grassy lawn area, that includes the scooters too, correct?
Correct, that's my understanding.
Nothing will be parked, yeah.
Nothing.
Okay, any other questions?
Just a quick question. You talked about customers and their customer expectations, but in terms of staff, how many staff will typically be in the building?
That's a good question. They anticipate that there'll be 3 to 4 new employees that they will hire. It's anticipated, as I mentioned, the number of customers, so they think between 3 and 4 employees on site. And again, because this is so specialized, they're it's very targeted advertising. People will find them. People maybe will call the Norfolk store and have a need that'll be on this side of the water, and they'll be able to provide services on this side of the water now that they wouldn't otherwise. So they really want to be able to be close to the community that they're serving.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Matters before the commission.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that I move that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission for conditional use permit number 2023-0002 and be approved with the conditions as recommended by staff.
That's second.
Okay, thank you so much. I think you wanted to say is presented by the planning department. Yes. Wait, do we have,
I got I second it either way,
Okay.
however it's worded.
okay. Now, do we have any discussion?
Can we add no parking on the grass to the conditions?
I don't know that that's necessary.
Is it?
Can we?
It says it's condition number 10, the vehicles displayed on site shall not encroach into the public right-of-way, landscape strip, or any other green areas.
Okay.
I think we're covered. Okay, discussion? Melissa, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Dias? Commissioner Shook? Commissioner Williams?
4.
Commissioner Taylor?
4.
Commissioner Stogel?
4.
Commissioner Bowditch?
4.
Commissioner Fox?
4.
Motion unanimous, 7-0.
Okay, this will be heard by City Council May 23rd. I'm going to close the public hearing on that one, and we're going to move into CU 2023-003, and I'm going to open the public hearing for that one, and that's going to be presented by Planner Carolyn Pazan. Welcome, Carolyn.
Hello. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Carolyn Poissant, here to present application CU 2023-0003, which is a request for the construction and operation of an automobile sales new car dealership in a C1 retail commercial district. The applicant is A&P Associates LP. The property is located at 13101 Jefferson Avenue and contains a total of 36.988 acres. The proposed development occupies 6.961 acres. To the north is CSX Railroad, Priority Automobile Dealership, and Strip Retail on properties zoned C2 General Commercial. There is an 84 lumber warehouse, Woodland Veterinary Hospital, and vacant manufactured home sales office on properties zoned M1 Light Industrial, also to the north. To the south is a public storage facility and various retail uses on properties zoned C1 Retail Commercial, and single-family homes on properties zoned R4 Single Family. To the east is Pearson Toyota and CarMax automobile dealerships on properties zoned C2 General Commercial, and various retail uses on properties zoned C1 Retail Commercial. To the west is the I-64 right-of-way zoned M1 Light Industrial, and vacant properties zoned R4 Single Family Dwelling. The One City, One Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan calls for natural area open space on the property. The development portion of the property has been zoned C1 Retail Commercial since the 1997 citywide comprehensive rezoning. The proposed automobile dealership will occupy a 33,950 square foot building. The zoning ordinance requires one space for every 300 square feet, which equates to 114 spaces. The proposed layout plan indicates a total of 466 spaces, all meeting the city's parking lot standards, and the majority of those are vehicle display areas. The site regulations require landscape strips on all street frontages of no less than 10 feet in width, which has been provided. Submittal and approval of a Class 1 site plan in compliance with all of the city's site regulations will be required. The sign ordinance allows up to 2 freestanding signs given the over 1,000 linear feet of public street frontage for this site. The applicant proposes to install 1 monument sign at the Jefferson Avenue entry and 1 flagpole in a landscape island near the Atkinson's Boulevard intersection. The engineering department has requested stormwater management and erosion and sediment control plans to be approved prior to commencement of work on the property. A traffic impact statement is also required to be submitted as part of the site plan process, and there were no objections from other reviewing departments. Okay. 2 properties totaling 56.612 acres were sold by the applicant to the city, sold to the applicant by the city of Newport News and approved by City Council on March 8th of 2022. The property proposed for development is vacant, and approximately half of the site is comprised of wetlands. The natural area open space land use designation originally occurred since the property was limited by these wetlands. The 6.9 acre portion that can be developed was sold to the applicant for the proposed use, with the remainder of the properties to remain undeveloped and preserved within a conservation easement. Appropriate permits from the Virginia DEQ and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers have been obtained. 20-foot wide landscape strips are being required to better mitigate the visual impact of the automotive dealership use. This is consistent with other automobile dealerships in the area under previous conditional use permits. All parking area layout dimensions and landscaping will be in compliance with the city's site regulations, and a fully developed landscape plan will be required with the final site plan submittal. All landscaping on the site will be conditioned to be maintained in healthy condition, utilizing proper pruning techniques, and site lighting will be required to meet current city standards. The proposed monument sign will have approximately 63 square feet of sign area, and the proposed flagpole has been conditioned to meet sign ordinance dimensional criteria. The business plan indicates a total of 65 employees with various hours of operation between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. In conclusion, the proposed use of an automobile sales new car dealership is an appropriate use for this location. The associated conservation areas will remain in perpetuity, ensuring that no additional development occurs on the remaining property, thus fulfilling the intent of the One City, One Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan land use designation of natural area open space for these properties. As such, staff recommends that Planning Commission recommend approval of conditional use permit CU 2023-0003 to allow for the construction and operation of an automobile sales new car dealership at 13101 Jefferson Avenue with conditions. And I'm going to highlight the key ones here. A Class 1 site plan shall be submitted to and reviewed by the Site Plan Review Committee and approved by the Director of Planning. This site plan shall be in substantial conformance with the plan entitled Layout and Utility Plan, prepared by AES Consulting Engineers, dated April 14th, 2023, and found in Appendix A6. The Class 1 site plan shall conform to this conditional use permit, the city site regulations, and the zoning ordinance. The undeveloped approximately 45.73 acres of the property as shown on the overall location existing condition plan, also prepared by AES Consulting Engineers and dated January 24th, 2023, and found in Appendix A5, showing, two separate shaded areas, each of which are identified as conservation easement to be conveyed to the Virginia Outdoor Foundation or other similar organization, shall remain undeveloped. The applicant shall submit to the Department of Planning building elevations and exterior building materials consistent with the elevation drawings prepared by Guernsey Tingle, dated February 8, 2023, and found in Appendix A10 to be reviewed and approved by the Director of Planning prior to the issuance of a building permit. And the landscape plan meeting the requirements of the zoning ordinance and site regulations shall be submitted to and approved by the Director of Planning. This shall be in substantial conformance with the plan entitled Rendered Concept Plan, prepared by AES Consulting, dated January 24th, and found in Appendix A6. All landscaping shall be installed in accordance with the approved plan and shall be maintained in accordance with ANSI A300, which is the American National Standards Institute regarding arboriculture. And in particular, the pruning of trees shall follow standard acceptable maintenance as defined in the standards, with species installed and not more than 25% of foliage removed within an annual growing season, and where topping is not considered acceptable. The use approved for this permit shall not commence until the landscaping has been installed. Only one flagpole and one freestanding sign shall be permitted, and the flag shall meet the dimensional criteria of the sign ordinance. The monument sign and details shall be in accordance with the details found in the packet, no taller than 8 feet, and a sign area no more than 65 square feet, to be reviewed by the Director of Planning prior to the issuance of a sign permit. In addition, no unauthorized signs, flags, pennants, banners, balloons, or advertising shall be affixed to any automobile or included as part of any outdoor display. The playing of music on any outdoor speakers shall be prohibited. The vehicles displayed on the property shall not encroach into the public right-of-way or upon any landscaped area or green area. The vehicles for sale shall be displayed only in marked parking spaces and shall not be double parked. All repair and service work shall be performed within an enclosed building, and there shall be no outdoor storage of hazardous materials, repair equipment, or parts, and other standard conditions also apply. With that, are there any other questions?
Carolyn, I have a question. This property has been for years considered undevelopable. Is that correct?
Because of the wetlands, about half of the site is encumbered by wetlands, and a portion of this development area actually did have wetlands on it. That's why the Army Corps permit and the DEQ permits were obtained, and they cover specifically the disturbance of those areas and appropriate mitigation, which in this case, I believe, is purchasing of some wetland banking off-site.
Okay, and there are 2 conservation areas
And
as
the
well,
areas are
with no development.
designated, no development.
Could I clarify something about the conservation areas? Because I believe Ms. Carney will speak to this. However, she did make us aware that the applicant, the plan that you have in your package is what was submitted to the city by AES, who was their engineering firm working on this project. It was the applicants was unaware that they had designated both the north and south portions of the properties as conservation areas, which is where that condition came from. The applicant believed that just the northern portion of the site, if you look at Appendix A5, which is listed as 27.47 acres, was going to be the conservation area, and not the portion that's shown as 18.26 south of Atkinson Boulevard. So that is up to Ms. Carney, and she may ask you for a change to the condition based on that information.
The condition as of now calls for the 2.
Correct. Right now, it does call for the 2, but it is up to the commission to make their recommendation to council. But I just wanted to make you aware that the attorney for the applicant did make us aware of that discrepancy.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And also
Little square behind
The project.
the project, that could be developed, correct? That's not including, that's not part of the conservation.
That's
Some
what-
of it is wetlands.
Well, it shows that it's not, but that's where my question is coming from.
Right. Currently, the ENS plan that's in your package shows it as not being developed. But the
But not
condition,
part of the conservation either.
Right,
But undevelopable.
but it's not stated.
I'm sorry?
It's a wetland, and they have to get permits for that. don't they?
Put everything in here but that.
So it's not.
Do you want us
something-
to bring up a map perhaps that might help you?
Yeah, but yes, if it's
Could you
different,
go back to your map,
if
Carolyn?
it's different
Oh,
from
yeah.
what we have here, or more accurate.
If you are looking at this drawing, the section that is shaded in green, the shaded striped part is the area of the site that's going to be developed.
Right.
Right. that
The
corner.
purple and green that is north of the Atkinson Boulevard right-of-way is what the 27.47 acres encompasses on the ENS plan.
Okay.
The unshaded green and purple that's south of Atkinson Boulevard on this map is what is under contention by the applicant. That's shown on the ENS plan as a conservation easement of 18.26 acres, but that was according to the attorney, an error.
Okay. Other questions for Carolyn?
Okay, so bringing us back full circle, the area that you're presenting is north of Atkinson, right?
Correct?
The corner, right, is where the development is planned, and
Right.
the area that we're questioning in reference to conservation easement is the area behind the development spot,
No, all south of Atkinson.
back across Atkins?
Across Atkinson and to the south is what they're saying is not included in the conservation easement.
Maybe it would be easier to clarify what is the conservation
So
area.
everything, basically the L shape around the proposed development, so the green to the north of it, and then the purple to the west of it, north of Atkinson, is part of the conservation.
So you don't have a laser on that, obviously, now.
I
We do not.
don't, but I can point to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll walk over there and point if you want, but,
My understanding, that's correctly by
I'm watching you, I'm watching.
this and that,
Correct, okay.
conservation, none of this.
Roger
Okay.
that, got it.
This is the development.
Roger, I got it, okay.
Okay, that's, yeah,
Is that right?
Roger that.
okay.
We're linked in now.
So
Ask away.
Yes.
So I have a question. If the land use is this green, what do we call it, natural area and open space?
Originally it was designated.
Originally, isn't that the 2003?
But
That is correct.
That's
So why can they develop it?
because of the zoning,
Because of the zoning?
yes.
It only
So-
requires conditional use permit.
Yeah,
yeah,
By zoning, right.
okay,
And they've got the core and,
right.
right.
But, I have another question. I live in the area. I noticed the trees going down. And now you're coming before us to get authorization to build, and you've already taken my trees out?
You can ask the applicant that question.
Carolyn
Okay.
didn't do it.
I know Carol didn't do it, but I want to make sure they know that I'm going to ask that question because the lot is clear. It doesn't look as beautiful as it did on the picture that you showed.
No, I doubt.
It looks like a lumber yard. Maybe I thought it was some 84 lumber, or maybe, walked across the street and took it out of.
Any other questions for Carolyn? Okay, thank you, Carolyn. I have a card. Lindsay Carney, Ms. Carney, do you mind coming forward and giving your name and address?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. Welcome, Commissioner Bowditch. My name is Lindsay Carney. I'm with the law firm of Carney Patterson Mead, 12350 Jefferson Avenue, Suite 370 here in Newport News. I am legal counsel to A&P Associates, LLP, which trades as many Casey dealerships, but this one particularly will be Casey Subaru. Staff has recommended approval of the conditional use permit CU 2023-0003, subject to 21 conditions. The applicant does consent to all of the 21 conditions. Let me tell you a little bit about the history of this site. Casey Subaru is currently located at 783 J. Clyde Morris Boulevard. It duals on that site with the Casey Volkswagen. That entire site is 3.82 acres for 2 dealerships. The current site is 6.96 for 1 dealership. Since 2012, we have been working to try to get a site to relocate the Casey Subaru. Initially, we tried to acquire additional property from Cox behind the Subaru. We also tried to get additional property next to us from the church. They weren't interested in selling or leasing or ground leasing. So we have been over the entire city trying to find a site that was at least 6 acres. We looked at 11 different properties in Newport News, 6 in York County. Mr. Casey was committed that he did not want to leave the city. So we finally identified this site as a site that was owned by the city, but has traditionally been considered undevelopable because of the wetlands that were on the site. The subject site, despite the wetlands and increased costs associated therewith, related to permitting with the DEQ and the Army Corps of Engineers, the wetlands mitigation credits, and the additional site work expenses, is Casey Subaru's preferred location.
It is located along a section of Jefferson Avenue that is already home to automotive dealerships, other automotive uses, self-storage, industrial, and commercial strip centers. 45 acres has been designated as preserved, and we can talk about what that looks like in just a moment. The total investment is estimated to be $12 million. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I just wanted to give you a little bit of the history, but I'm happy to answer the questions that you have.
Thank you.
Yes,
Michael,
sir.
Do you have a question?
Please answer how the lot is cleared,
Yes.
being cleared.
So, we did fell the trees, and the reason that we had to fell the trees is because there is a new regulation by the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries that if you did not fell trees on a development prior to the end of February 2023, there was a moratorium on felling trees until November 1 of 2023. We have already, I've just give you the long history.
Right.
So Mr. Casey said, what can we do? And the Corps said, as long as you fell those trees, you cannot take out the root balls, which is why you just see them in place. Before that, then you're okay to do it. And because we had our Corps permit. So we went to the city manager and said, here's the situation. So under a right of entry that we negotiated with the city, we had the permission to go on site and only fell the trees. We were not allowed to do any further work because, of course, we have to go through this process. Mr. Casey agreed to indemnify the city that if for some reason this doesn't go through, he has to make that site right again. So hopefully that's responsive to the question.
Yes, to me and the community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
So the conservation easement, if I could address that.
Yes.
Yes.
Everything behind the site, so the L, as Carolyn indicated, that is on the north side of Atkinson, pursuant to both the DEQ permit and the Corps permit, must be preserved as undeveloped. It can be dedicated as a conservation easement to the Virginia Outdoors Foundation, similar organization, or simply just undeveloped. That is what we showed to the Corps. What you see in your packet is what AES submitted in its ENS plan, because we need to get the ENS approved to go ahead and grub the trees once all of this process goes through. They inadvertently included in that conservation designation the south side of Atkinson. That was not part of what we had intended to do, but if it is the pleasure of this commission and it is a material issue, we will go ahead and consent to that.
You're talking about the
Commissioner.
18.26
Yes,
acres?
yes, Commissioner.
Isn't that part of the condition number 2, which you said that you consent to?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is it was not intended, but if that is
They
the
will
pleasure
be.
of the commission, we will consent to that.
Okay.
To get your 45.73.
And that's how you get your 45, yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Okay, other questions?
Mrs. Carney, is that parcel developable?
That parcel over there, it does have wetlands. And the practical ramification is, it sits right behind a strip center. It has very little access on Jefferson, so it's better preserved.
Yeah, okay, good.
So just to be clear,
Yes.
we're talking about this piece of property and that piece of property in conservation? I know
And-
this is
and
not,
of course-
I know this is not the way to do this.
Yeah.
Oh, I have it, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And
I know that's not the way to do it, but if you can pull up a map, I just
So
want
if
to be
you are looking
clear.
at the AES plan, C 1.0.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you see the overall site is in black.
Yes.
Behind it, conservation easement to be conveyed. That entire L shape
Okay.
is conservation.
Okay,
That
even-
line is the zoning designation,
Okay,
yes.
all right, so the entire L shape behind and then across the street, the 18.26.
That's correct.
And is the L shape 27.47 or is something more? Because it includes in that.
It's 20,
Okay, all right,
It's the L-shaped piece, that's 27.47.
okay,
that's correct.
all right.
Okay, thank you. Other
Thank you.
questions?
Thank you.
So, I just have one more question.
Yes, sure.
So, if, I know it's a conservation easement, and if somebody wants to build on it, how do they get it out of the easement?
So if it's designated to the Virginia Outdoors Foundation, they are the grantee of the easement, they would
Right.
have to consent to that. But the Outdoors Foundation has subsequently said they will not take easements in conservation if it's related to a development condition. They want it to be gratuitous, so the Outdoors Foundation will not take it. If in fact we can't get someone to take it, we will then just go ahead and put a restrictive covenant on it that will be the benefit of the city. and it would take the city's release. We're working with the city manager on the best way to do it, but it will remain undeveloped.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other questions? Okay, you don't have a question, okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carney. I do not have any other cards on this matter. So I'm going to close the public hearing. Melissa, I'm going to ask for someone on the commission to make a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I'd like the motion for acceptance of conditional use permit 2023 tax 003 with all established conditions or identified conditions.
I'll second, but it's 0003. 30.
You would
I'm just saying, that's what it
stand
says.
corrected.
Okay.
CO tax 2023 tax 003.
Okay, good. We have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? I will make a comment that I think the one good thing about this is we are now bringing a piece of property that was totally undevelopable onto the city's rolls as a meaningful taxpayer. And so that, to me, makes a lot of sense. Call the roll, please.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Shook?
4.
Commissioner Williams?
4.
Commissioner Taylor?
4.
Commissioner Stodgel?
4.
Commissioner Bowditch?
4.
Commissioner Dias? Commissioner Fox?
4.
Motion unanimous, 7-0.
This matter will be heard by City Council on May 9th. Wow, May 9th?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, zoning text amendments. Closing the public hearing on that one. Moving on to a zoning text amendment, I'll open your public hearing, Ms. Giros, for zoning text 2023-0001.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Planning Commissioners. The request is to amend Article 4, Summary of Uses by District, Section 45-402, Educational Services, to permit child care centers in single-family residential zoning districts with the approval of a conditional use permit. Child care centers are defined in the zoning ordinance as a facility that is licensed and operated in accordance with the Code of Virginia for the purposes of providing care to a group of 5 or more children separated from their parents or guardians during part of a day. Currently, the zoning ordinance allows child care centers by right in commercial districts and with the approval of a conditional use permit in multiple family residential districts and office districts. It does not allow them in single-family districts. The code also allows in single-family districts something called a family child care, which allows the opportunity for 4 children or up to 4 children to be taken care of. The amendment before you would allow the opportunity for child care providers within single-family districts to apply for a conditional use permit. The conditional use permit process provides the opportunity for the applicant to understand the state and local requirements for operating a child care center or a child care business from your home. The process also would allow for the consideration of the introduction of additional people and traffic into neighborhoods and can minimize negative impacts that could be experienced by neighbors if they weren't regulated. On March 15th, 2023, the Regulations Committee reviewed and recommended approval of the referenced amendment, and it is our recommendation that City Planning Commission recommend to City Council adoption of zoning ordinance text amendment ZT-2023-0001 20-0001. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions? Yes, Commissioner Williams.
See, why you make me feel like that?
I don't. I was yeah.
This does not restrict the number that can be applied for, even in a certain area, correct?
Correct. However, there's state and building code requirements that have to be met with the number of people. So basically, the number of children that's allowed or would be allowed would depend on the size of the house, the rooms that you're using, and those types of requirements, in addition to other types of building code requirements, such as ADA accessibility and all. It depends. It's a graduated thing. So it doesn't kick in right immediately, but the state licensing does. After you have more than 4, you have to have a state license to operate a child care center.
And a second question, can a single owner who may have multiple homes still be able to create these centers wherever where they own?
So we don't require the property owner to live there, if that's what you're getting at, but you do have to meet certain requirements. So that's conditional use permit process would kind of tease out all of that information.
So I have a question. Can I-
Yes.
So if there's an empty lot in a neighborhood, could you build a child care center on that empty lot?
If you go through the CUP process and meet all the requirements.
Okay. Other questions? I don't have any cards for this. Thank you, Flora, Madam Churros. Okay. Matters before the commission?
Madam Chair, I move that zoning text amendment number ZT Tech 2023 Tech 001 be approved with conditions as recommended by staff.
Madam Chair, a second.
Thank you. Okay, this has been moved and seconded. Do we have some discussion?
Yeah, I have a little bit of discussion.
Yeah, I do.
Now, hold on, we had all these discussions during regulations, so
Oh, okay.
I'm here every time
So
you mention
it's an interesting sort of thing because we're now putting, commercial enterprise, could be possibly commercial enterprise within a residential neighborhood. We're not limiting the children, you get, and I understand there's accessibility issues and it's taking a house and making it into a commercial property. I understand that. But we are now inserting commercial businesses in residential neighborhoods.
But only if they can get their conditional use permit.
Right.
So it could be that doesn't happen. Hopefully, that would be the point, is,
They come back before the commission every time, everything's, yeah.
that was the purpose of the conversation we had
Yes.
with regulations. That's the way we saw it. That could be the deterrent.
Was it? Okay, and so y'all conclude that you think it's, if having to go through the process, it wouldn't be an individual that would try to take, in a
Advantage.
sense, like Katie was saying, an advantage of this situation to try to create multiple child care centers using residential space.
Roger that, yes.
Or just putting business, now you're putting, a commercial entity in a residential. So, I live in my house and all of a sudden next door neighbor becomes a child care center.
if they get the commercial.
If they get the conditions
Yeah,
permit.
yeah.
And that's something you can, that is true. You can get a conditional use permit and you can have a child care center in a residential neighborhood.
Now, by right, you can have up to 4 kids.
Right.
Correct.
In a residential
Yes,
neighborhood.
by right.
And
If you have less than 5, the state does not require licensing.
Right.
Correct.
So once you have 5 or
You
more,
have to go through
you
the
have
state
to have
licensing. and-
right.
Right. So it's a bit of hoops.
Correct.
I'm sorry, if I can go back and just, go ahead.
Go ahead. And that was one of the reasons in the conversation during regulations is that we try to make it as stringent as possible, but yes, someone could possibly try to meet those regulations, but it will take a A lot of effort.
And you're finding that there are people in residential areas
Today.
that really need to be able to expand their services.
Yeah, which I was gonna say, what really prompted this review?
COVID. To be totally honest, because it opened up, it basically helped us to see that there are people who are already providing that service. They
Right.
want to continue to provide that service, but because of our regulations, and we were following the state regulations, it didn't allow them to do that. We looked at other ways of doing this, but we all came to the same conclusion, that ultimately, once you get past the 4, you're a child care center.
Correct.
And so this allows that flexibility. However, you have certain requirements that you're just going to have to meet, even though it's in your home.
So where, again, and this kind of similar to the past, how are we as a city going to enforce this to get people to register these child care centers if they're already existing?
Well, they only can have 4 kids right now, so.
Legally,
Legally. So how do we get those people
then I'm not, right?
to register?
Well, it's like
If we,
everything
if we,
else.
Yeah,
if we
it's like
recognize
anything
that this
else.
is already an
It's like everything
issue,
else.
and we're bringing it under compliance.
We can't really,
So
it's
sh-
like if you have 5 dogs.
Right. So Sheila, let me ask you something. Right now, you're saying this allows people to have more than 4 kids in their home. They don't have to live there.
No, they do not have to.
So it's not really their home.
Right.
But legally,
They could turn the thing into a child care center, move out, and run this like a business.
They could, but remember, they have square footage requirements they have to meet per child.
Right.
So the likelihood is someone I don't think would want to do that. It'd be easier to just find space as opposed to just buying a house and trying to make it a child care center.
Could you reference the fact that, is there an age in the code reference to children? Because I know there's a restriction obviously based on non-related young adults or adults living in one dwelling together. Is there a reference to a child's age?
and
Yeah, well, for child care, you have the aftercare program that goes up to age 12.
We just have a number of homes in our neighborhood that are not rentals that have 4 to 6 young adults living in. that are
So,
not-
so
that's
you're
a
saying
whole
you could have a
different
2-year-old and a 12-year-old?
You could,
Yeah.
yes.
I don't know, this is
And
kind
you
of,
have different square footage requirements based on the age. And the children that live there are not considered part of the child care
Right.
center. This isn't.
I just have an issue with the fact that this is allowing, even though you have to go through a lot of hoops and a conditional use permit, we're still introducing a commercial use into residential.
I have the same concern. I think Commissioner Williams brought up a great question. If an investor or homeowner wanted to expand their business and purchase multiple houses or use multiple housing for that purpose, nothing stops them. One thing I'm considering obviously is there is a shortage of housing, shortage of affordable housing. So I feel like once we start to integrate that on top of the allowance that we've started talking about for short-term rentals, before you know it, you know, that number kind of dwindles closer and closer to zero and what's available. So I kind of share that same concern.
I mean,
Yeah.
we don't limit the hours of operation, so this thing could go 7 to 10 at night.
That would all have to be done during conditional use permit
Right.
process.
That would be a condition put on the.
Hopefully it would be, we don't know, because, if there's no more discussion, Melissa, would you please call the roll?
Alrighty. Commissioner Williams,
Against.
Commissioner Taylor,
For.
Commissioner Stodgel,
Against.
Commissioner Bowditch,
Against.
Commissioner Dias,
Against?
Commissioner Shook,
For.
Commissioner Fox,
Against.
Motion fails 5-2.
Okay, that will not be heard, I guess.
No, still good service.
Oh, wait, it will still be heard.
Yeah.
Okay, by City Council on May the 23rd. And we have a request to defer zoning text amendment 2023-002. And
Oh,
that's the parking amendment. And Flora, you have asked us to defer that? Or Sheila has asked us, so.
Correct, that's correct.
Do we need to vote on that deferral?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we defer the hearing on zoning text amendment ZT-2023-0002.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, would you call the roll, please, Melissa?
Okay, Commissioner Taylor,
4.
Commissioner Stodgel,
4.
Commissioner Bowditch,
4.
Commissioner Dias,
4.
Commissioner Shook,
4.
Commissioner Williams,
4.
Commissioner Fox.
4.
Motion unanimous, 7-0.
Okay, and as I said, that will be heard by, well, that one will not be heard.
That will be deferred.
That will be deferred until a date as presented to us by,
I think the date was stated in the
Is the
deferral
date-
request.
July 19th.
July 19th.
It's in the letter.
Okay. All right, moving on from that. We are moving into,
You're getting presents.
Yes, it is. Like,
yes,
This is really cool.
moving into the last item on our agenda, the Lee Hall Area Plan, which will be, this is the draft plan, and it will be presented by Carolyn Poisson. I'm opening public hearing.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here after 2.5 years
This is really great.
to present the update of the 1997 plan for Lee Hall, which is our first comprehensive plan amendment of 2023, Plan 2023-0001 for the Lee Hall Area Plan. And you've just received a copy. This is still a draft plan. There are a few minor tweaks and things that we have caught and will fix in the final document before we reproduce it for distribution after City Council does the resolution. So the update of the 1997 Lee Hall Area Plan is a strategic priority identified in the One City, One Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan. The 2023 Lee Hall Area Plan was developed with input and is the culmination of work that began in September of 2020 and included both online and in-person meetings with the Citizen Advisory Committee, Technical Advisory Committee, as well as interviews with planning directors from adjacent localities and the Lee Hall Engagement Survey. I did provide an overview and update of the area plan effort to City Council at work sessions held September 14th of 2021 and February 28th of 2023, and the Planning Commission work session, which you all know of, was last December 7th. The plan boundary follows the city limits adjacent to York County, beginning at Fort Eustis Boulevard and north through Newport News Park to the Naval Weapons Station, and then to James City County, and then south along Skiffs Creek. East sort of wraps around the Oakland Industrial Park, and then out Dozier Road to Fort Eustis Boulevard. The boundary corresponds to Census Tract 324, and that serves as the basis for census information obtained from the U.S. Census Bureau. The Lee Hall Area Plan strives to protect the historic and rural character of the area while seeking to enhance local attractions and provide a more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly environment. The recommendations of the plan are focused around 4 key goals: preserve historic character, protect natural resources, improve neighborhood connectivity, and encourage sensitive development. There are 4 proposed changes to the future land use designation. The first one is 2 parcels north of Hilltop Drive, currently designated high-density residential, are proposed to be changed to medium-density residential. This is to be more compatible with the surrounding properties. At 401 Hilltop Drive and 3 properties off Warwick Boulevard, these are currently designated as high-density residential and are proposed to be changed to urban residential to better reflect appropriate land uses. And currently, there's 1 single-family home on those, and the urban residential would allow for single-family or low-density multifamily. At 17445 Warwick Boulevard, this is within the O'Hara open industrial area, and one of the parcels north of O'Hara Lane is proposed to be changed from natural area open space to community facilities. And this would allow for more flexibility in locating things like a community resource center or interpretive center. So the green would just go to blue, and there would still be the buffer of open space around that property between that site and the residential. And finally, 165 Yorktown Road, the future land use designation of this 144-acre city-owned parcel is proposed to be changed from mixed use to industrial to allow for light industrial uses that would have direct access to the railroad and to I-64. The property was previously designated as industrial prior to 2006. And I just want to note there's a slight discrepancy. The one little parcel, which is at 185 Yorktown Road, is also included. That's also EDA property. The little teeny tiny corner, yeah. That should be purple too. Yeah, that should be purple too.
Okay.
And we did have a special meeting of the Citizen Advisory Committee because this wasn't originally discussed in the earlier meetings. And that was, no one objected to that per se. So, a recommendation of the 1997 Lee Hall Area Plan was to create an historic district over the original village area. However, the lack of contiguous historic architectural fabric is somewhat limiting in seeking a nomination to the National Register of Historic Places. Expanding the boundaries of the Lee Hall Corridor Overlay District is another way to preserve the historic character and ensure that incompatible uses are not introduced and that proposed structures will adhere to the district's guidelines. So the proposed expansion area is near the original village center along Warwick Boulevard. And you can see here, it's kind of along where the Lee Hall Plaza is. The edge of it is near the Oakland Industrial area, and that sort of triangular section actually encompasses EDA property that is the community gardens right now. And that would form that whole core. So what is blue now would include the orange, and you'd have a core area for the Lee Hall Village concept. There are 2 additional existing historic properties in the proposed expansion area. The expanded overlay would form a large contiguous core for the Lee Hall Village concept. In terms of the opportunity areas in Lee Hall, the plan highlights 3 key components. A request for qualifications was issued by the EDA to create a high-quality residential community on the 284-acre Enview tract located at 350 Yorktown Road. The preliminary Enview conceptual master plan is a mixed-use development which includes a total of 536 housing units and approximately 10,000 square feet of neighborhood retail commercial space, as well as preserved wooded areas, a clubhouse facility, and dual-purpose stormwater detention and water quality mitigation ponds. The second opportunity area involves the currently active open-air industrial properties along O'Hara Lane, which occupy a key location between existing commercial uses along Warwick Boulevard and Skiffs Creek, and they are also bounded by single-family residential uses. Once the industrial uses are discontinued, The vision is to restore the native landscape on most of these properties and create a park-like setting with access to Skiff's Creek, along with a system of trails and amenities such as accessible fishing platform, picnic shelters, restrooms, things of that nature. So that would complement the village in terms of providing a recreational amenity adjacent to the village area. The third area is really the heart of Lee Hall. The early 20th century village area contains a number of historic structures, including the Simon Curtis House, built in 1897, also known as the Boxwood Inn, the recently restored Lee Hall Depot and Chesty Caboose, that was recently located there, Ripley's General Store building, the Lee Hall Automotive Building, and several homes built before 1950. And of course, there's Lee Hall Mansion, built in 1859, which is a popular cultural attraction. And these properties form the central core of Lee Hall Village. The Lee Hall Village concept focuses on placemaking to create unique and vibrant destination, highlighting the area's cultural resources. A village master plan would be developed corresponding to the approximate boundary of the historic village of the early 20th century. This concept envisions having a variety of new attractions while keeping the smaller scale and historic character of Lee Hall intact. So the idea would be that you'd create enough interest in that area with some additional development to really tie it into the historic triangle of Williamsburg, Yorktown, Lee Hall, and showcase the area's historic facilities and bring more tourism to the area. The plan also includes strategic objectives and target projects that address traffic mitigation, enhancement of park and recreational facilities, protection of natural resources and water quality, improvements to neighborhood connectivity, and construction of the birthplace of America Trail. In conclusion, the 2023 Lee Hall Area Plan sets a clear vision for the future and provides a roadmap that outlines the steps necessary to realize the plan's vision. The plan also serves as a framework to guide land use decisions in the future. Furthermore, the goals and strategies of the plan are closely aligned with the vision and priorities of the city's One City, One Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan. And I just want to thank all of the members of the Citizen Advisory Committee. We worked through COVID, we worked online, we met when we could, and everyone was very much engaged and very courteous at all the meetings. We had a lot of staff support, from parks, especially in development, and everyone really, I think, pitched in a lot and brought the issues forward that are hopefully addressed well in the plan.
Thank you, Carolyn, yes. Does anyone have questions for Carolyn?
Oh, I just have to finalize saying the recommendation
Oh,
is
sorry.
that Planning Commission recommends City Council to adopt Plan Amendment Plan 2023-0001.
Thank you. Questions?
I just make a comment. I had sent Carolyn pictures from last December, maybe. I had been in Warsaw, which is sort of Warsaw, Virginia, which is, and then you looked over at me like, how does this pertain? But it's the same sort of crossroads, and they have, just a few of their little historic buildings left, and they've revitalized that little downtown, and I immediately thought of Lee Hall, because it's the same, it's got the same parts and pieces there, so, it's right.
Thank you.
Carolyn, when you say 536 housing units, that of course is a mix of apartments with homes and townhomes.
There's,
Mixed use.
I know that plan is a little hard to see in the plan, but there is some apartments up on Yorktown Road. There's a little commercial there. And then there's mostly single family, but there is a couple components of townhomes in the development. And Derek,
Somebody's shaking their head
Derek
no.
from development is here. He can.
Yeah, we're gonna go to the, yeah, we'll get into that in just a minute with our speakers.
I have one more question. You said that at one time they went and they applied for a designated historic district.
It was a goal of the 1997 plan.
Is there any goal to do that again?
as I mentioned, it's a little bit, it could be done, but when you apply for one, you have to nominate and you have to have contributing structures, as you know. And it's somewhat limited, and so the district's not really contiguous, and it would be a little bit of an awkward shape, you know, per se, and so much of it has been impacted. So that's why we propose expanding the overlay, because we can include the Lee Hall Village footprint in that and still have pretty much the same effect without going through the whole nomination process and all that.
Okay, thank you very much, Carolyn.
Yep.
We do have several cards here from people that would like to speak about this. And I'm just going to call them in the order that I received them, and remind our speakers, please, to be cognizant of our 5-minute limit. Our first speaker is Dr. Dane Pope Henry. Please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, have a lovely afternoon. It's so rainy. Dr. Dinah Henry, retired professor of William and Mary, 35-year resident at 90 Anchorage Drive, Newport News, Virginia. I thank you for the opportunity to address you, and I would like to, first of all, thank Carolyn for her leadership of the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Lee Hall Master Plan. I had the honor of being on that committee. We worked diligently, and it has been a very long 3 years. The process has been enlightening, and the resulting document a true effort. I find the plan generally a wonderful plan. A Lee Hall Village is great. The protection of natural resources, the protection of historic character. I volunteer out at NView to creating a nature trail. I have a real love of trees. I have 2 comments about the proposal. First, the inclusion on page 23 of the Weldon Field and Row Plan. It's a private business for the development of the EDA NView property is unusual for a city document that is to guide planning. Inclusion of this plan presumes that the necessary rezoning, amendments to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act and the resource protection areas, DEQ and Army Corps of Engineer approvals, the conveyance of property, and the necessary archaeological surveys will allow for the plan to continue. The property is surrounded on 2 sides by Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act and resource protection areas on the Lebanon Creek. Second, a large majority of the Citizen Advisory Committee oppose the development of the EDA portion of the NView property. When we started off, we were asked not to talk about NView in terms of the Lee Hall Master Plan. It was off the table. So we purposely did not spend time on that. And so I was quite surprised to see the Weldon Field and Row Plan on page 23 of the Lee Hall map, of the Lee Hall Plan. My name is on that document. This infers that I agree with the plan, including the development of NView. I do not.
Can
Wiser
I stop
choices-
you a second? We do not have.
It's on page 45.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry,
Thank you,
page
thank you.
45. I'm so
Okay.
sorry. On
I
my,
wanted us to.
on my
yeah.
PDF, it was page 23.
Yes, I would like to make sure we're in sync.
Following you, okay.
Okay.
Okay, now, thank you.
All right, I am so sorry. Again, the entire NView the NView property is bordered on 2 sides by resource protection areas and Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act. Along with, another portion is protected by the historic NView property. Wiser choices should be made about what to do. I request that the Weldon Field and Row Plan is not removed from the master plan, that a statement on the same page state that the majority of citizen advisory members do not approve of the development of the EDA property. There's so much wonderful things to be found at Enview. The city archaeologist recently found 3 unmarked graves, probably of enslaved people, on EDA property. It is thankfully on the resource protection property. There are numerous places where people are buried. It was a hospital in the Civil War, and people's graves are marked by stones because they were too poor to have markers. An archaeological survey should be done to protect graves, to protect our natural resources. It is one of the largest groves of pawpaw trees in the area. And the pawpaw is one of only 2 native fruits to that area. So I ask that the master plan be approved, but amended to remove the plan, because that is a Weldon Field and Road plan, and not, it could change. They could change it tomorrow, because it's a private industry. And if it's not going to be removed, then please note that the Citizens Advisory Committee overwhelmingly did not believe in the development of that area. I thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Henry, do you happen to have a copy of where that vote was taken for the record?
Well, she wouldn't, but I'm sure planning staff does.
Well, we weren't allowed to talk about it, but whenever we met, we would talk about, and we can do another vote, that we're still alive and kicking.
Okay. I'm going to call up our next speaker, John Gergley. Please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Following her.
And
I appreciate what she said. My name is John Gergley. I live in Winter Haven Drive in Newport News. I've been a resident since 1966 and a homeowner since 1968. In 1997, Newport News did this plan, as stated. It laid language for 20-some years. Then all of a sudden, we have to do a new one. Why? I'll tell you why we have to do a new one. Because Enview they want to develop Enview. There was a public meeting when the city brought out at the fire department's training facility, the city introduced the Enview development. That meeting was horribly received. The citizens there did not like the idea of the Enview project happening at all. Shortly after that infamous meeting, this thing came out, oh, let's do another Enview plan, another Lee Hall plan. My wife and I joined the Citizens Advisory Committee. At the first meeting, we were told we're not allowed to talk about Enview, period. Many people objected. Every picture you saw on there's Enview right there. Every picture you saw showed the Enview thing as developed. We were not allowed to talk about it at all. And when we just decided to talk about it, they'd bring engineers in from the city and to mollify the arguments and all. I'm sorry. At the very first meeting, I'm going to pass out, I have copies of you of several emails that I wrote with Carolyn about the discussions. Every meeting we had, there's a big elephant in the back of the room called Enview. How can anyone have this document, not talk about 500 plus families getting in the area, not talking about the infrastructure needs, the sewers, the city schools, everything's going to impact Lee Hall unless Enview is discussed in detail, and we were not allowed to discuss it. So I think this whole project should be canned, and another one started over, and including discussion of the development of Enview. But in those documents, the last one is a real estate ad that I wrote, I presented to the city council for development of Enview. Right next to, which Enview is going to be developed right next to the Navy bomb facility, and it's right on the edge. It's just not a good business plan to develop Edgeview, period. And this whole project is just wasted because we weren't allowed to talk about Edgeview. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We now have another card from Christine Jakes Gergley. Welcome, Christine. Please state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Christine Jakes Gergley. I also live on Winter Haven Drive in Newport News, and I've been there ever since 40-some years since I married my husband. Why was I interested in Enview and in Lee Hall? My family has been here since the 1600s. My great-grandparents moved to Newport News from the Gloucester and York County when the shipyard started, and they owned houses. So I am part of the family married into the Ripleys. So therefore, I grew up knowing the older people because my grandmother and my mother, and so I was always shown the history, the church across from Enview, and so I've always been interested in history and preserving what little beautiful land Newport News has left. The original Enview, and I have to say this, we fought for years. From the very time it went on, the citizens won 2 times. The third time, which was just recently, as my husband said, we did not get to go into the plan. The plan was already, we got to help pick who was going to build there. Well, that wasn't fair. But, so therefore, when they came around to Lee Hall, we didn't want the same thing to happen to Lee Hall. It's a beautiful area. Yes, they need maybe a grocery store and things, but if you looked at the plan that she gave us earlier, a draft, and it had I don't know if it's in this one, all the citizens' comments, not just ours, but people that wrote in, people didn't want it developed that much. They liked the rural area. One set of people who were redoing a house, they quit once they heard what people were going to do, and they were going to sell their house. And they were redoing an old house, which was saving, the style of the area. We do not agree that the Enview plan is in the document because our name is on it, and we did not agree with Enview. We agreed with the Lee Hall, which we really worked hard, and yes, we did a lot of commenting on it. We wanted to talk about Enview plan as we felt like the traffic from Enview was going to impact Lee Hall, and it will. And however, we're not allowed. Now, during the recent emails, former Vice Mayor Madeline McMillan, who was on the committee, she could not come today, but she wrote to us that she agreed with what the 3 of us have been going back and forth. And I talked with Councilman Dr. Patricia Woodbury, and she is in another meeting. If she gets off, she will come, but she said to say to you that she does not agree with Enview being in the Lee Hall plan. So I asked you to think about it, and please not only think about Lee Hall, which we've, I think, done a pretty good job of saving it from being overbuilt, but also think what that land that you want to build on is going to do. It's very nice when people come in and they see Newport News Park and they come up and then they see a big field, and over there is a historic church. Church and Enview. And that is a vision. They could do a lot with that land to do other things besides build on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Okay. There are no other cards on this matter, but I guess, Carolyn, it appears that we could take the in-view portion out of this, but the land use will stay the same in the plan. Is that correct? I mean,
That's
the
true.
the in-view.
The reason that there was not a lot of discussion focused on NView is because that is a rezoning process. It's a totally separate process. And to open that up and talk about it as if that is a proposal was not appropriate.
Right.
We were not even under contract to actually move forward with Weldon Field or anything. At that point, it was very conceptual. So we did talk, we did talk about it in terms of traffic and things like that, and those comments are noted in the citizen advisory comments, which are all included in the plan. So you can see that. So I guess it's a question of if it's in there, perhaps it could be further clarified, saying that a rezoning process would be required for this proposal.
Right, or
And-
have it taken out and
or-
addressed as a separate document?
The image does not have to be in there. But
Okay.
remember, the property is already zoned for mixed use.
Right.
So the discussion concerning the mixed use and the development of the property, that can continue in there, but we could.
Not
easily-
identifying it.
Right, we can easily take the image out.
So
Okay.
right now it's zone mixed use.
Yes.
So this could happen by right.
It could, but there are conditions attached to that rezoning. So there are proffers attached that they'd have to adhere to. And remember, that proffered rezoning, I believe it was a total of like 1,500 units. And this proposal is less than half of that.
Okay,
We have a letter that we need to read to enter in the record as well.
okay. Okay, I'm going to read this letter into the record. I'm going to do it right now, yes. Lee Hall Area Plan. Dear Chairwoman Fox, on behalf of the Virginia Peninsula Associates of Realtors, I would like to offer our full support for the draft Lee Hall Area Plan that is under consideration by the Newport News Planning Commission. VPAR is the voice for real estate on the peninsula, representing nearly 1,100 real estate professionals active in all phases of real estate brokerage, development, and property management. Our mission is to enhance and promote the expertise of realtors and to protect and preserve private property rights throughout the peninsula communities of Hampton, Newport News, Poquoson, Isle of Wight County, and Lower York County. The VPAR Public Policy Committee was fortunate to have been a part of the plan's stakeholder process, providing input and insight to Carolyn Poussaint at the outset of the community engagement effort. Both initially and now, our members are excited about the focus the city is placing on the strategically important district that connects Newport News to James City County and serves as a gateway into the heart of the peninsula. We recognize that home ownership in the Lee Hall area of the city has not reached its potential, largely because of a lack of inventory and candidly a lack of development opportunities. We believe that the proposed area plan is a good first step in encouraging sustainable, smart development that will create additional and affordable home ownership opportunities. The potential for offering more community amenities that would include enhanced access to Skiffs Creek, improved connectivity to other parts of the city, expanded recreational facilities, creation of bona fide Main Street feel to Warwick Boulevard, designated community gathering and performance spaces, and a pedestrian-friendly concept, all are excellent components of an anchored, relevant neighborhood that will attract developers, builders, and residents. VPAR believes that the Lee Hall Area Plan builds a strong foundation for bringing more focus to this important historic community within Newport News and will also be a driver for increased and improved housing opportunities. We stand at the ready to work with the commission and with the planning team as the plan moves on to City Council. Likewise, as always, we strive to be a resource to all city decision makers. If questions arise regarding housing data, market statistics, or other housing specifics, we can provide answers. We are proud to be a partner with the City of Newport News. Please feel free to contact our Chief Advocacy Officer, Susan Gaston, at 757-871-1445 or at susan@gastongroup.com if you need additional information. Thank you for the opportunity to provide our input once again. Warmest regards, Teresa Klein, President. Okay.
Just a real quick point of clarification. So, if I'm correct, EDA owns Endview.
They own the property surrounding the historic Endview.
Okay.
Correct.
Is there already something in the works for that land to be sold to a developer?
Yes, there is.
Is it this plan?
Yes.
But it would have to go through a rezoning process.
So this plan, it's really premature to talk about it because
In specific details, yeah.
I think taking this exhibit out,
Put it for discussion.
You said it has to go through rezoning. I thought it was already, what's it zoned now?
It's already zoned for mixed use.
Yeah,
It's
so why does
zoned
it have to go
R9
through rezoning?
because of the proffers.
Proffers are
okay.
different. The proffers are different. And it's a different development plan altogether.
So it's like,
okay.
yeah.
Yes, it's a
Okay.
proffered
All right.
rezoning.
I think I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And since we don't have any other cards, thank you, Carolyn. And matters before the commission.
What are we voting on? To approve it?
To the adoption of the plan.
Okay.
And you can adopt it with
Well,
amendments.
you can amend it
Okay.
as you want to.
Okay.
So we need a motion to get the discussion going.
Motion for discussion?
What?
Do we have a motion to approve it?
Yeah, or not approve it.
You can make a motion to approve or not.
Can I ask another question? Is it too late for another question?
Once we get
Get to the discussion.
Who is the question to? Carolyn?
Flora.
Laura, sure, yeah.
So I guess my question is, what is the value of including this concept plan in the package if the concept plan is going to be changed significantly with the current knowledge of the proffers? Is it considered just a what could happen and an exciting potential or not exciting potential for some? Or what is the, I mean, we've heard concerns, but what is the value of including this one sheet, obviously labeled by the potential owner under review to be included today?
It was just a schematic. It does not have to be included. There's really
Let's-
no
yeah.
real value in including it because it can be amended and you will see the actual plan if it comes before you for rezoning. So it can be removed.
And that's what I was gonna get to when we discuss it, as to how we wanna proceed with that
Madam
schematic.
Chair, I make a motion to accept the amendment to the One City, One Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan for the Lee Hall area, number PLN 2023-0001.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'd like to amend the motion to remove this Endview conceptual master plan.
Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Okay.
So I make a motion, less the in-view conceptual master plan.
And I don't know if there's any other, I mean, I haven't read this thing cover to cover. I don't know if there's any other references to it.
Well,
No,
I
okay.
think it's the second. I think the second came from the rear.
Who's the second?
Second.
Thank you, Dice.
okay, now we can discuss this. I personally have a problem with this concept plan being in here if we really, I mean, I don't understand why it's a part of this since we can't really do anything about it at this point. And it seems like that's another whole project.
To me, to have a private sector business land developer on a concept plan in this 80-page, very, very developed document creates some type of, I think, inaccurate expectation that this is going to be the future.
That if we approve it.
Or that the proffers are already approved. I know they're not. Or that
These meet the proffers.
Or that these meet the proffers, or that all contracts are signed. So
Yeah.
the elimination of a single page, it doesn't seem to harm or foul the future for this private sector entity or.
And who is Weldon Field Row? Are they a local firm? I mean, are they a Newport News firm familiar with us and what we do and how we live and our citizens?
Well, just to give the counter thought, and I hear what everyone is saying, is that if I'm hearing everything correctly, it's just that we want to make sure that everything is developed in unity. Because EDA is in the process of selling this property, which is part of this Lee Hall overall area, to this developer. Now, I don't know what and maybe you want to clarify, what the benefit is of making it inclusive as what was presented to us here for that unity or that unanimity of what we want to do in total for the Lee Hall project.
We were asked to include it so it doesn't appear as if we were doing something underhanded or people didn't understand what was going on. I mean, when we had the initial meeting to start the Lee Hall area plan, the developer was at that meeting, and it was a little contentious.
I'm sorry, we've closed the public hearing.
It
so.
was not, when I say the initial meeting, I'm saying the initial meeting before we ever had a citizen advisory committee. At that meeting, citizens signed up to be a part of the Lee Hall area plan discussion. The developer was there. The developer got input from the community at that particular meeting. This is the same developer. Again, I say, it was just a schematic and a concept. It can be removed.
Yes.
It's not going to hurt the plan at all to remove it.
And we have a motion to remove it.
Yes.
And we have a second to that
I want
motion.
to add, if I can add an amendment to that motion,
Wait,
because we've already amended it to take the drawing out, but I can't find any reference at this point. But if there's any references to that drawing, I want those removed also.
Okay?
I haven't
I
found it
accept
yet.
that amendment.
Thank you.
do you want to restate your motion just so we're all clear what it actually is? I'm not sure.
I've got it.
Okay, never mind. I'll read it back
What do you
to
read
you.
back
Okay,
the
so
motion?
Mr. Williams has amended his amended motion that he already amended to remove the Enview conceptual master plan to also include all references to that conceptual master plan.
Okay, and that was seconded
Yes.
by Commissioner Taylor.
Dias. Commissioner Dias.
Commissioner Dias.
Commissioner Diaz, okay. All right, thank you. Okay, more discussion?
Is there anything else in this plan that keeps it as a draft, or as of today, this will turn from draft to effectuated plan?
If we vote on it today to move forward to city council, it will move forward no longer as a draft. Is that correct?
No, it is a draft until city council adopts it.
But we will be sending it forward to
Forward.
them.
As a
saying we
recommendation.
approve it as a draft. If we don't approve it as a draft, we feel like we need more time to look at it or think about it. We always have that option. But we have been talking about this and working on this for 3 years, and we've heard it, and I think other than this one issue.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this again just starts the wheels turning towards development. It doesn't mean that what this says is ultimate, because we're doing an overlay, right? It could change, correct?
But this just
That
starts implementing the plan, right?
Yeah, that is correct. The plan really is a plan to update the 22-year-old plan that was in
Right.
place. InView could be developed without the plan because the comprehensive plan already identifies it as mixed
Mixed
use.
use.
And it is zoned mixed use.
Right. See that?
Yeah. Okay, I think that we are all ready to have the roll called.
Okay, we ready? Commissioner Stodgel,
For.
for adoption. Commissioner Bowditch.
Four.
Commissioner Dias. Commissioner Shook.
Four.
Commissioner Williams.
4.
Commissioner Taylor.
4.
Commissioner Fox.
4.
Motion unanimous, 7-0.
Okay, and this is going to be heard by, or presented to City Council on May the 23rd. So, okay. Well, moving right along. To find my agenda. Okay, we are moving into our executive secretary report.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to welcome our newest planning commissioner,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray Bowditch. This is his first meeting. He was so
Congratulations.
anxious to participate. He was sworn in today, and he's seated today. So welcome.
Welcome.
We're certainly glad we had him today, too.
All right, upcoming planning commission meetings on the 17th, we have a special exception for the Auto Bell. That's just north of Hilton on Warwick Boulevard. Also, remember, following that meeting, we will have a work session concerning the planning commission's bylaws, okay? On the June 7th, we will have several cases. One will be a change of zoning, and this is from C2 General Commercial to R7 Medium Density Multiple Family with proffers at 5716 Jefferson Avenue. I believe that's Cottage Grove Apartments. And we have 4 conditional use permits. The first one is a group home, that's Peninsula Rescue Mission. And this property is adjacent to the current Amtrak station on Warwick Boulevard for Group Home B. The other is a conditional use permit for Boxwood Inn. They are expanding it, so they're asking for a banquet hall, conditional use permit. And then we have Harris Teeter is adding gas. Well, they want to add gas.
On the YCU.
Yes, that's the only Harris Teeter in
Yeah.
Newport
I guess there
News.
is.
Now, for that one, I will have to recuse myself.
Wow.
Because I work for the foundation that owns
Yeah.
the property.
Ooh.
Yes, you will.
So yes, you have.
And the last conditional use permit is for a fitness center. It's on an industrial piece of property, Ed Wright Lane. And that's all I have.
And what date is that? May,
This is on June the 7th.
June the 7th, okay.
So if you all can attend, we would appreciate it.
Okay.
We'd love to have a quorum plus on that day.
Quorum plus, pushing it.
Okay, I got it, May 7th.
Quorum plus.
Okay. Next, we have committee reports.
There's no committee reports from the regulations today.
Okay, do we have any new business?
I have a suggestion, question.
Not new business, but point of order, we went right into the public hearing without accepting the minutes.
We never accepted the minutes from the last one.
Well,
Just so we can meet our admin.
I thought we did. We did.
No, we were already
No.
talking about getting started when we got started.
Yes,
okay, the minutes stand as presented. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, please put that in the record in the right place.
You're welcome.
Anything else I need to be?
I just want a quick question, a reference. When this is ready to go and what is presented and comes out of council, we'll get a copy of it
Yes.
after that.
And thank you all for all your hard work on that. The Citizens Advisory Committee and Carol and everyone. That's awesome. Okay, there's no new business, no old business. No corrections. Okay, the meeting is adjourned.